I'm Jessica. I'm 33 years old. I live alone in a quiet lakefront home I bought after years of working in tech, poring over code while everyone else was out living their lives. And a few weeks ago, at our annual family reunion, something happened that changed everything. My mother stood up during dinner, tapped her wine glass, and in front of 24 relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, childhood neighbors, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You should start packing. Ethan will be moving into your lake house. It's the least you can do." It was so casual, so rehearsed, as if I was just a guest in my own life, and my brother was entitled to everything I'd earned. I didn't say anything at first, my fork hovered over my plate. I remember staring at the grilled corn like it would somehow answer for her. My chest burned, my hands trembled, but not from shock, from the bitter realization that I had seen this coming and still hoped I was wrong. Let me back up. Ethan is my older brother, 36 now. Charming, artistic, and, according to my parents, perpetually misunderstood. He's also been unemployed for 5 of the last 7 years, crashed 2 cars that weren't his, and left 3 college programs halfway through. I, on the other hand, worked 3 jobs to put myself through school, graduated summa cum laude, and built a life with no handouts. I never resented him for being different. I resented how my family twisted my success into selfishness and his irresponsibility into struggle. That night at the reunion wasn't just a blindside, it was a culmination, a lifetime of being overlooked, of being told to be the bigger person, finally exploded in a moment no one expected me to resist. But I did. And when I said no, what followed wasn't just painful, it was cruel. It was revealing, and it forced me to ask the one question I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. What do you do when your family becomes your first abuser? Let me take you back to how it all began. Growing up, I didn't understand that I was being treated differently. Not at first. I just thought Ethan needed more attention, more help, more encouragement, more second chances. That's what my mom always said. Ethan's sensitive. He's creative, Jess. Not everyone learns the same way. I believed her because I was 8 years old, and all I wanted was to be good, to be easy, to make things smoother for everyone. But over time, I began to notice. When Ethan knocked over a neighbor's mailbox during one of his practice drives, my dad chuckled and said, "Boys'll be boys." When I spilled juice on the couch cushion, he didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Ethan brought home C's and D's, and it was the school's fault for not recognizing his talents. I brought home straight A's, and my mom would glance at the report card and say, "Well, of course you did. You always do." And that was it. No hug, no celebration, just expectation. He got rewards for existing. I got silence for excelling. And yet, I kept trying. I joined science fairs, the math league, the school paper. I won things, placed in competitions, got offers to attend special summer programs. But they never came. "We can't afford that right now," Mom would say. And then, in the same breath, they'd drive Ethan 3 hours for a weekend painting workshop to help him find his purpose. When it came time for college, I applied for scholarships, took out loans, juggled waitressing and tutoring to make it through. They bought Ethan a brand new laptop, dorm supplies, even paid his first semester in full. He dropped out 6 weeks later. I didn't even get a card when I graduated. By the time I was 23, I had already accepted a simple truth. My worth in that house was conditional. I was the support beam, the quiet one, the one who didn't need anything, so they gave me nothing. But Ethan? Ethan was the sun around which everything revolved. His needs dictated every dinner, every dollar, every decision. He wasn't asked to be responsible. He was expected to be rescued. And me, I was expected to understand. Even now, as an adult, I think back to that little girl sitting alone at the kitchen table with her science trophy, listening to her parents argue in the other room about Ethan's latest setback. I remember wondering not why they didn't love me, but why loving me never looked like showing up. And that's the part that still stings. By the time I was 17, I knew no one was going to save me. No one was going to step in and say, "Jessica, you've done enough. Let us help now." So I did what I'd always done. I figured it out on my own. I applied to every college I could afford the application fee for. Not dream schools, not Ivy Leagues, just anywhere with a decent computer science program and a realistic shot at financial aid. I ended up at a public university in New Jersey, living in a cramped dorm with a broken heater and one working stove between 30 girls on the floor. While Ethan was at some liberal arts college in upstate New York, fully funded by our parents, complaining about how the professors didn't understand his artistic vision, I was working the 5 a.m. shift at a diner, pouring coffee for truck drivers before my 8 a.m. data structures class. On weekends, I tutored high schoolers in algebra and babysat for professors just to afford textbooks. There were nights I fell asleep on my laptop in the campus library because the dorm was too loud to study in, and there were days I cried in the bathroom between classes because I felt so behind, so invisible, so tired of always having to prove I belonged. But I kept going. My junior year, I landed an unpaid internship at a local tech startup. I took the night shift at a 24-hour grocery store just to make it work. I wrote code at 2 a.m., stocked shelves at 4, and somehow still passed my final exams. And when I finally graduated magna cum laude, I didn't get a party, no flowers, no card, just a text from my mom. "Glad you made it through. Ethan's thinking of taking a photography course this fall." It didn't matter anymore, because that summer, I got hired by a cybersecurity firm in Denver. Entry-level, barely above minimum wage, but it was mine. My first paycheck didn't cover much, but I remember holding it in my hands and thinking, I earned this, every cent of it. No handouts, no safety net, just me. Over the next 5 years, I climbed. Slowly, relentlessly. I took online courses, learned new languages, stayed late, said yes to every opportunity. I worked while Ethan moved from job to job, hobby to hobby, still living rent-free at home, still finding himself. And while he drifted, I rose. Eventually, I landed a role as lead systems architect at a major healthcare tech company. The salary was good. The benefits were even better, but the best part? The silence. For the first time in my life, I could afford to be alone and not afraid. And that's when I bought the lake house. I thought they'd be proud. When I bought the lake house just outside Boulder, I imagined, foolishly, that maybe this time things would be different, that they'd come see it and say something like, "We're proud of you, Jess," or even just, "You did well." But that's not what happened. The first time I invited them over, I spent 2 days cleaning every corner, baking my mom's favorite apple pie, even setting out the fancy dinner plates I only used when clients came by. I wanted the visit to go well, to feel like something we could build on. They showed up 40 minutes late. My dad walked in and said, "So this is what tech money buys." He said it like a joke, but his eyes scanned the room like he was calculating what it cost. Mom didn't take off her coat. She looked around and said, It's a little much, isn't it, for one person? Ethan, of course, made himself right at home. Opened my fridge, took a beer without asking, stretched out on my couch like he'd been living there for years. "This would be a great place to clear my head," he mumbled, half to himself. I tried to laugh it off, but inside, something twisted. No one asked how I'd afforded it. No one asked about the promotion that made it possible. Instead, the questions were veiled digs. "How's the mortgage? Hope you're not overextending yourself. Must be nice having no kids and no real responsibilities." As if every decision I'd made, to work, to save, to stay single, was some kind of cheat code they resented. Every holiday after that visit, there was a new comment, a new way to remind me I was different, that I didn't quite belong anymore. My uncle at Thanksgiving, "Still living out by the lake? Must be lonely." My aunt at Christmas, "You should let Ethan stay with you for a bit. Give him some space to focus." At first, I thought I was being paranoid, that maybe I was imagining it. But then came the jokes, the ones that sting under the smile. "Jessica's too good for us now. You know her, all business, no heart. Don't ask Jess for help, she'll send you a spreadsheet." They weren't just teasing. They were jealous, but no one wanted to say that out loud, not when it was easier to paint me as cold, selfish, distant. But the truth? I hadn't changed. I'd just stopped apologizing for succeeding. And that, more than the house, the job, the quiet confidence, that was what they couldn't stand. It started with a text. Just a casual message from my mom on a Wednesday afternoon. "Hey, honey, Ethan's having some issues with his medical bill. Any chance you could help him out? Just until he gets back on his feet." No "how are you?" No "congrats on the new project," and definitely no mention of the bonus I'd just worked 2 months of late nights to earn. Just a request. Always a request. It was $400 that time. I paid it. Told myself it was a one-time thing. Told myself it was about being kind, being supportive, being family. 3 weeks later, Ethan called me directly for the first time in months. No small talk. "Hey, Jess, I'm in a tight spot with rent. My roommate bailed and the landlord's being a jerk. Any chance you could cover me for this month? I'll pay you back in 2 weeks, max." It was $850. He never paid me back. After that, it was the groceries, then utilities, then, and I swear this happened, a $1,200 camera he needed for a new business idea, photography this time. My parents called it an investment. I called it a pattern. Each time I hesitated, the guilt would come like clockwork. Mom would say, "You know your brother's just trying to find his path. Not everyone's lucky like you, Jess." Dad would add, "You've got that nice house now, a good job. We're not asking for much." But they were. They were asking me to erase years of sacrifice, to pretend like I hadn't clawed my way here alone while they poured every resource into Ethan's endless reinventions. What hurt more wasn't even the money. It was that no one ever asked what it cost me to get here. I'd worked holidays, pulled 14-hour shifts, said no to vacations, missed birthdays, sacrificed sleep, health, relationships, all to build a life I could stand on. And now they wanted a piece of it, not out of celebration, out of entitlement. Once I tried to draw a line. I said, "I can't keep covering for Ethan. He needs to learn to stand on his own." Mom got quiet, then said something that gutted me. "Wow, you've really changed." I hadn't changed. I'd just stopped being willing to be exploited. But to them, independence looked like selfishness, boundaries looked like betrayal, and helping myself meant I was refusing to help the family. I looked over my bank statements one night and realized I had given Ethan nearly $3,000 in the span of 4 months, and every time I opened my phone, there was another message, another ask, another emotional invoice disguised as love. That's when I knew this wasn't support. This was a debt I was never supposed to stop paying. It started with a phone call from my mother in early June. "We're thinking of doing a big family reunion this year," she said, cheerful but with that practiced edge in her voice. "You know, like old times. We'll grill in the backyard, your cousins are flying in, Ethan has something exciting he wants to share. You'll come, right?" I hesitated, not because I didn't want to see my family, but because I already sensed something was off. It was in the tone, the way she said, "You'll come," instead of, "Can you come?" Like attendance was mandatory, like I owed them. Still, I said yes. I told myself I was overthinking it, that maybe I was being paranoid because of all the recent tension. Maybe, just maybe, they were trying to make things right. Over the next few days, the texts began rolling in. From my dad, "Make sure you get there on time this year. Your mother's really looking forward to it." From Aunt Linda, "Can't wait to see you. Ethan says he has big news. We're all so proud." From Cousin Rachel, "Jess, I heard you're coming. Been too long. We need to catch up. Also, is the lake house as amazing as it looks in your pics?" Even Ethan sent me a message. Just 2 words. "You coming?" No punctuation, no warmth, just a check mark next to his plan. I couldn't explain why it unsettled me so much, but something about how coordinated it all felt made me uneasy, like I was walking into a setup, like the whole thing wasn't really a celebration, but a performance. I tried to shake the feeling, but then my mom called again, just a few days before the reunion. "Jess, I know things have been tense lately," she said, sighing dramatically, "but this is family. Can we please just focus on that? Don't bring any negativity, okay?" That's when it clicked. This wasn't about reconnecting. This was about control. They wanted me to come, stay quiet, smile for the pictures, and play the role they were comfortable with, the stable one, the one who gave without limits, the one who never made a scene. And Ethan? I didn't know what his exciting news was, but I had a sinking feeling it had something to do with me. So I prepared. I picked out a conservative dress, one they couldn't call too fancy. I planned polite responses to the usual passive-aggressive comments. I even wrapped a thoughtful gift for Ethan, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want to give them any more ammo. I was walking into that reunion like someone entering a courtroom, careful, calculated, guarded. And I told myself one last time that maybe I was wrong. Maybe this would be the turning point. Maybe they'd finally see me, hear me. But deep down, I knew they didn't want me there to celebrate me. They wanted me there so they could make their move. The reunion started like any other family gathering. The grill was smoking, the folding chairs were arranged in that familiar semicircle around the backyard fire pit, and classic rock played softly from someone's Bluetooth speaker. Laughter floated in the air, that performative kind, the type that sounds happy if you don't listen too closely. I made my rounds, hugged my aunts, shook hands with uncles, politely dodged questions about any special someone in my life. And of course, Ethan was holding court, like always, beer in hand, charming the cousins with stories of his creative sabbatical. No one mentioned his recent eviction, or the jobs he'd quit, or the $3,000 I'd sent him over the last few months. That part of the story always disappeared behind his smile. Dinner was served at 6. I was seated next to my younger cousin Rachel and across from Aunt Linda. Ethan sat at the head of the table, naturally. My mom buzzed around, refilling water glasses and adjusting the salad bowl, acting more hostess than mother. Then, as dessert was being cleared, just when everyone seemed content and relaxed, my dad tapped his glass with a spoon. "If I could get everyone's attention for a moment," he said. The clinking stopped, conversations faded, and my stomach dropped. He stood. My mother stood beside him. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a smug look on his face that told me whatever was coming, he already knew. "We've all seen how hard this last year has been on Ethan," Dad began. "He's been trying so many things, working through so much, and he's finally at a point where he's ready to rebuild." Murmurs of support followed, a few nods, a soft clap from someone in the back. Then my mother added, "But to rebuild, he needs a foundation, a safe space, somewhere peaceful where he can think, create, and get his life back on track." I felt every muscle in my body tense. Uncle Dave leaned forward, smiling like he was offering a gift. "And it just seems obvious to all of us, Jess. You've got that beautiful lake house. You're hardly ever there. And Ethan could really benefit from a quiet environment like that." There it was. Not a question, not a conversation. A public, coordinated ambush. I looked at Ethan. He didn't even flinch. "I'd keep to myself," he said casually, as if the decision had already been made. "I just need somewhere to get back on my feet. 6 months, tops." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In front of everyone, my parents, extended family, even kids at the table, they were expecting me to give up my home. Not rent it, not share it, just hand it over. Because he needed it. I took a deep breath, my voice even but firm. "No, that's not going to happen." The air went still. Forks froze mid-air. My mother's expression dropped from expectant to outraged in a heartbeat. "Jessica," she said sharply, "don't embarrass yourself. This is your brother we're talking about." I met her eyes. "And this is my home. One I worked for, one I sacrificed for, and I'm not handing it over just because everyone here feels uncomfortable saying no to Ethan." That was the moment the smiles disappeared, and the masks came off. The silence after I said no was deafening. For a few seconds, no one moved. It was like I'd cursed in church or stood up at a wedding and objected to the groom. Every eye was on me, not in shock, but in judgment. My mother was the first to break. "Jessica," she said, her voice trembling with fury, thinly disguised as disappointment. "I don't understand this attitude. It's just for a few months. You have more than enough. Don't be so selfish." Selfish. It landed like a slap, even though the real slap would come later, not with a hand, but with words sharp enough to cut bone. My dad added, "We've supported you for years. We were always there for you." I turned to him slowly. "When, Dad? When I was working 3 jobs to pay for college? When you skipped my graduation because Ethan had a meltdown over rent? When you told people I just got lucky in my career?" His mouth opened, then closed. Ethan scoffed loudly. "Wow, so dramatic. I just need a room, Jess. You act like I'm asking for your firstborn." "You're asking for my peace," I shot back. "You're asking to invade the one space in this world that is entirely mine, something I earned without help from anyone at this table." My mother stepped forward. Her voice rose with each word. This is your brother, your family, and you think your stupid little lake house is more important than helping him? It's not about the house, I said, louder now. It's about the principle. It's about every time I've been told to sit down, shut up, and give more, while Ethan is praised for doing the bare minimum. Gasps, whispers, the discomfort was thick in the air now. You think you're better than us, Aunt Linda said quietly, as if that explained everything. No, I said. I think I finally see you clearly. That's when it all turned. My father stood up, red-faced. You're ungrateful. We gave you everything. I stared at him. You gave Ethan everything. You gave me expectations, silence, and guilt. Then Ethan muttered under his breath, "Always the victim. Classic Jess." And that did it. I stood up, pushed my chair back slowly, and looked around the table at the people I'd once hoped would clap for me, see me, love me for who I really was. If being part of this family means being a doormat, I'm done. I turned to leave, but my mother called out behind me, "Don't walk away. You'll regret this." I paused at the doorway and said one final thing, not out of spite, but out of truth. No, what I'd regret is staying in a room where love is conditional. And with that, I walked out, not just from the dinner, but from a role I'd been forced to play my whole life. The obedient daughter, the silent provider, the unthanked safety net. From that night on, I would be none of those things. The drive home that night was completely silent. No music, no podcasts, no calls. Just the sound of my own breath and the occasional crackle of gravel under my tires as I pulled into the driveway of my lake house, my sanctuary, the place they tried to take. I sat in my car for a long time, keys still in the ignition, headlights casting soft beams across the driveway. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just empty, like a balloon that had been inflated for years and finally burst, leaving nothing but the feeling of air escaping. Inside, everything was exactly how I left it, clean, quiet, calm. No judgments in the furniture, no passive-aggressive questions from the walls, just space. Mine. The next morning, the texts started. From my dad, "You upset your mother. You owe her an apology." From my mother, "You humiliated this family. Ethan was devastated. Do you even care?" From Ethan, "You've always been cold. Enjoy your house alone." Each message felt like another attempt to pull me back into a role I had finally shed. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned off my phone and went for a walk by the water. The wind off the lake was cool and sharp. It reminded me I was alive, and that peace wasn't quiet, it was earned. Over the next few weeks, I made some hard decisions. I blocked numbers, I unsubscribed from the emotional newsletter that was my family's drama. I spoke to a therapist, not just to process what happened, but to understand the deeper patterns. Why I'd spent so long giving, why guilt had been used like a leash, why I kept hoping they'd change. I also started something new. I invited friends over, real friends, people who saw me, respected me, and didn't ask for anything in return. We grilled on the deck, played board games late into the night, even kayaked in the mornings. One evening, my friend Clara, who'd known me since college, said something that stuck. "You seem lighter, like free." And I realized she was right. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't living for someone else's comfort. I wasn't walking on eggshells or dimming myself so Ethan could shine. I wasn't waiting for approval from people who only loved me when I was useful. That version of me, the one who said yes out of obligation, who mistook silence for peace, she was gone. Replaced by someone stronger, someone who had finally said no, not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. There's this myth in American culture that family is everything, that blood trumps boundaries. But here's the truth I had to learn the hard way. Family isn't who demands your sacrifice, it's who protects your spirit. And if that means drawing a line so thick they can't step over it, so be it. My life didn't fall apart after I walked away. It finally began. It's strange how peace doesn't always arrive like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes peace feels like waking up and realizing your chest isn't tight anymore, that you didn't spend the night replaying old conversations, that you can sit alone in your kitchen and feel okay. I still think about them, my family. I still love them. Yes, even Ethan. That part never really goes away. Love isn't a switch you flip off when people hurt you. It lingers, even when it bruises, even when it breaks. But here's what I finally understand. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you over and over again. I've chosen peace, but I haven't chosen hate. I've chosen distance, but I haven't closed the door forever. I just changed the terms. A few months after the reunion, my dad emailed me. Not a demand, not guilt, just a message. He said he missed me, that he'd been thinking, that maybe they hadn't seen things clearly. I haven't replied yet, but I might, someday, on my timeline, with my boundaries. As for my mother, she hasn't reached out. I don't expect her to. And Ethan? He's still bouncing between jobs and projects, according to a cousin I still talk to. I don't wish him harm. I just wish him somewhere else. These days, my lake house feels warmer. Not because anything changed in the walls, but because I changed within them. I filled the space with my people, my chosen family, the friends who cheered me on without envy, who celebrated my wins without making them feel like weapons. We laugh a lot, we cook together, we talk late into the night about things that matter, not who owes who what. One night, as we sat around the fire pit outside, my friend Clara leaned over and said, "You know, I think this is the life you were always meant to live. You just had to fight to claim it." And she was right, because here's what no one tells you. Sometimes peace isn't given to you. Sometimes you have to defend it, ruthlessly, unapologetically. But once you do, once you've earned it, you never, ever let it go again. And so, if you're listening to this and you're in that place, that messy middle between guilt and freedom, between obligation and truth, I want you to hear me clearly. You can love your family and still protect yourself. You can want connection and still demand respect. And you can walk away, not to punish them, but to heal you. Have you ever had to choose between peace and family? Tell me in the comments. You're not alone. If this story resonated with you, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who might need it, because we all deserve to be loved without conditions. Thank you for listening to my journey, and wherever you are in yours, I hope you find the courage to choose yourself every single time.